everyone, to the Art Sprint. How official is that? This is a process exploration into curating a activity set specifically designed for exploring artistic endeavors or the language of art and design. This came about through some conversations and some exploration around how a design sprint and artistic endeavors can kind of come together. Uh, I'm going to be joined by a number of professionals and practitioners, some of which are in the design spaces, some of them are professional artists. You'll be meeting all of them towards the end of our session. What we're going to be doing now, though, is going through a few exercises to kind of set up the stage for how they see this art sprint process coming together. I'll be sharing my screen as part of this recording on YouTube, as well as for people that are on Zoom that are viewing this. At any time during this presentation, if you have any questions for me or for the panelists that are taking part in this, feel free to populate either the Q&A or the chat section in Zoom. And for the panelists, if at any time you have any issues with the mural or with connectivity, or if you need to step out, then Zoom chat is definitely going to be your avenue to get my attention, or at least what I'll be paying attention to. So to get things started, I will head out into Zoom and start with broadcasting my screen so that everyone can see what we are going to be doing. For those of you on the panelist side, I think we've all confirmed that you have access to what I'm showing right now. If in case you do not, then do feel free to put that in chat. So for those of you who are viewing on Zoom and YouTube, up here at the very top is a kind of assembly of people that have confirmed that they were going to take part in this. Later on, we will be introducing them. This is a high-level view of where everyone's located at. We have a bulk of people that are coming in from the States, but then we have a few that are dialing in from Croatia, Germany, as well as or Munich, as well as Barcelona. This session is pretty much going to be about getting everyone's perspective on what an art sprint is. There's no judgment here, so this is pretty much taking collectively what we see as the art sprint or the concept of it, and projecting it out first as a collective, then individually for our own particular situations or our own perspective. We'll be working through 3 sections. The first one is to get everyone's perspective on what the process is. The second is to explore it in terms of activities you'd think about doing in an art sprint, and then putting them into categorization in terms of a framework of what would happen during the week as well as before and after the sprint. And then finally, each panelist will have the ability to take the learnings here and what the approaches that everyone has and construct their own. Although the language that I'm using here is going to be changed as we're going to go through this, where instead of a challenge, it's going to be like the purpose or a purpose, which we're going to take from part 1. So I'll go ahead and make those changes while the panelists are working on their work up above. But before I start, does anyone on the call that's going to be participating have any questions about what we're going to do or how we're going to get started? And feel free to interrupt at any point in the future if your mic's off, but you've been desperately trying to say something, which has happened. Okay, so if you are in the mural, I'll give a quick introduction to how it works. Basically, in these particular sections, there's a bunch of gold cards listed here underneath the question. To put in your perspective, all you have to do is take your mouse or your trackpad, and you can click once to basically select a card, or double click to type in one. So for this first part here in part 1, it says, what would you use an art sprint for? You would basically give your answer in one of these cards by double clicking on it. So we don't know what an art sprint is, but if you, in your mind, if you used an art sprint, what would you use it for? Go ahead and double click on one of these cards and put in your perspective. So for me, let's say I would use it for ideation and brainstorming as one. Now you could be more specific or less specific than this example, but there really, again, there is no right or wrong answers. We're going to give about, say, let's start off with, like, say, 3 minutes to kind of fill in this space. Go ahead and spill out from your head what you think an art sprint is for from your perspective. And if we need more time, we can always add it. If we find that all the gold boxes are filled up, then we'll stop the timer and move on to the next section. Okay, so if you're in Mural right now and you're a panelist, go ahead and double click on any of these cards that you see in this space here, and I'll go ahead and make sure that everyone's kind of looking at the same space I am. And go ahead and fill out what's on your mind over here. Okay, we're nearly done with that section. And no problem, Pablo. Feel free to join in wherever you like. We just got started. Okay, so we have kind of a collection of about 30 cards that all kind of get into what an art sprint could be like. Now we're going to head over to this section here. Who would participate in an art sprint? Like, is it just for artists, or could it accommodate other audiences? From your perspective, go ahead and fill out these cards in terms of who you think who would participate in the art sprint that you're thinking about. If you already kind of speculated on what you would use it for, then who would be in a session ideally? And I won't have a timer for this because I think we might get through this fairly quickly. Okay, I think we filled that one up in about 2 minutes. That's fantastic. Let's get into part 3 then over here. And let's get into why someone would do an art sprint. So you've kind of speculated on what an art sprint is for, and then you've thought about the audiences in terms of who would actually get engaged with. But what's the why behind it? What would someone stand to gain by engaging and exploring this process? What's the rationale? What would draw people in? So same thing as the last two. Go ahead and put in what you think an art sprint, why someone would want to do an art sprint. Why should they care? What would be important? And I'll bring everybody over. Whoa. Press again. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've gotten these three sections done fairly quickly. Let's take a few minutes to kind of look at these three and kind of retrospect and see what everyone else has kind of put in here. So this is a chance to kind of step back for a second and look at the body of opinion that we've had here in perspective. If you'd like to kind of comment on anything you see here, in terms of like something that surprised you, something that confirmed your thoughts, maybe an idea that you saw from someone else. The way to do that is to come on, Mike, introduce who you are and what you're all about, where you're from, and then say what you'd like to say. If you don't have anything to say, then I can always call on someone just real briefly to start things off, but feel free to do so if you feel inclined.
Hi, my name is Alexa, and I'm from Long Beach, California. Design thinking is what I do, and I'm an executive coach. I had a tech company, and design thinking was really design sprint core to my company, and it got acquired a couple of years ago. So anyway, what really struck out of this, why would someone do an art sprint? The square that stood out and was explore uncomfortable edges. And I think there's something so powerful about art, about giving people permission to be creative. Too many people are afraid that creativity belongs to someone else's world. And that is an excellent edge for people to play and explore. It'll just open up so much, giving each other permission to be creative, to engage in something different. So I really like that edge bit.
Okay, thank you, Alexa.
It's Alex from Germany. I'm a co-founder and I'm exploring design thinking like 1.5 years, and I'm very fascinated about remote and design sprints. What something is I haven't thought of, what I found interesting is um, like a health background to that, like unlock your brain and integrate it and help actually people with an art sprint to get in contact with others and themselves, and that art could help in like art therapy, that art could help people heal. That is like something I haven't thought before, and that somehow struck out.
Okay. Thank you, Alex.
Hello, I'm Melvin Thambi. I'm working as a designer. So my job is creative director for an IT company. I do product design, marketing, and branding and everything. And I'm coming from a fine arts background where I learn more about art and other things. And I do design sprint for some of the projects that I do, especially lighting decision jam. And I realize the potential if we do some sprint on real projects. So then I thought it might be a good idea if we bring this sprint idea to creatives as well, because most of the creative people, they are not that organized in thought process, because that might be too scattered. So I think if they are more organized, then they'll be able to become more creative. So in that way, I think art sprint will bring a big change.
Okay. Was there anything in particular about any of the cards that you saw here in these 3 sections that struck you as interesting, or yeah, that kind of stood out for you? Doesn't have to be one. I'm just curious to know if there was something that you had saw that was like, oh, that's something I didn't think of. No? All right.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name's Chris. I'm based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I do run a design thinking community, and that's led to different freelance opportunities, whether it's facilitating or doing some marketing help, or I'm still a little bit all over the place. But I think just going through this process right here, what I thought was really interesting, also as a photographer, why would I do an art sprint? For commercial reasons, I've noticed just through different creative projects that different products or campaigns match to certain target audiences because they align with shared values some way, or like something about that campaign or photo story or whatever event aligned with their values. And I think an art sprint might be a good way to explore these like intangible things that you can't really measure that might, and figure out like who it's going to resonate with, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And just by going through this, it dawned on me, I was like, oh yeah, it would be a really cool way to not only explore the edges, but then like, who do these edges connect with or resonate with?
Cool. Okay, thank you, Chris. Pablo, Barcelona, Spain. El profesor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pablo Quintano. I'm from Barcelona. I have a long working story in consulting, big consulting companies. The last few years, I've been working quite deep in innovation and design thinking for different companies. And I'm very much into design sprints, which I think great method to bring design thinking to corporations. And on top of that, I'm doing a lot of classes for students in different disciplines. And one of those is fashion students. And I have realized that fashion students have, as Melvin was saying, a very unstructured way of working. It's very creative sometimes. It has some great things, but they lack the structure that in business people in the business environment we have. So I definitely think that they would highly benefit from that. And I always see the connection back, the business people getting all the creativity and some of the ways of working that people in the art area has, that would be also quite beneficial.
Very cool. Okay, thank you, Pablo. I'm glad you're here. I believe, Nora, have you spoken yet? I don't recall. Did you make an introduction to yourself?
No.
Well, then
Hi,
have at it.
my name is Nora, and I worked with a professor when I was at San Francisco State. I was a senior instructional designer, and the idea was that students from other countries who thought of working more collectively on projects, they thought they were cheating. And they'd come to me and they'd like, how can we redesign this so they don't cheat? And I feel like we need to turn cheating on its head, right? And really deconstruct the ways we think about what we're doing. And I think artists are really good at deconstructing what we're doing and bringing, I think someone had said, their thought processes are not organized, so we need to organize them. And I would say, that those processes it's not about disorganization, it's about being able to see multiple possibilities and bring disparate ideas together to find something new. And so that's what I believe in ArtSprint, is being able to bring creative people who have the ability to see an object and see an array of possibilities and bring it together with something else and make something new. I am a designer and a facilitator. I run design sprints. I'm going to be doing a series soon in relationship to this, doing some creative decision jams. And I think there's multiple ways that we can use this, and multiple parties who can benefit from being able to take some of this, the app, the goal of kind of like the app of the website that we're going to create, and being able to break it open to say, how are we actually going to make creative change in our world? And I think artists are the people who help us do that.
And those, you have 3 sessions. That's when I'll go for it. Oh no, I was going to say you have 3 sessions coming up with Natasha, correct? Those are happening towards the end of February, early March.
Yeah, February 25th, March 17th, and April 21st. They're creative decision jams, pictures for a new world, and they're running from like 9 to 11. So we're really excited about seeing that happen.
Cool. Okay, thank you, Nora. Finally, Susanna in North Carolina. Would you please come to the microphone?
Unmuted. I'm Susanna Childers. I have a facilitation company called AHA. So we're all about bringing people together. So I'm a facilitator. We bring people together to collaborate. And so we've been using versions of design sprints for years before design sprints were a thing. So to me, it's all about this possibility, seeing more possibilities, or imagining, like my favorite sign says, imagining what those possibilities are and getting perspective from lots of different viewpoints. What we know over time is that when you have the so-called creatives from, say, an ad agency in the room, they get so much more out of the collaborative process than if you kind of create a design brief and throw it over the wall and then they're supposed to execute, as do the business managers and strategists. So it's about bringing all of those brains together and tapping into the wisdom that's in the room. And so from a sprint standpoint, it's giving them a structured process with both structure and freedom. And so the concept that structure creates the freedom to create, I think, is what I see the possibility as. And how art sprint, to me, I was just curious about the concept because I'm a graphic facilitator, is how do we, and through some of the virtual design sprint technology, bring art and imagery and go beyond words and talking. So go beyond just linguistic and auditory, but bringing in imagery and story and other kinds of video even into that process. So that's what I'm curious about, how do we bring the visual aspect of art and or performance part into a sprint creative process to stretch people in new ways.
Cool.
Yes, Susanna, yes.
All right, cool. So now that we've done introductions and kind of looked over everything, what everyone's done in part one, we're going to move on to part two. Now, I'm all choked up about part two, excuse me. So the way to look at part two is later on, you're going to be able to personalize what you think an art sprint is. The way to kind of view this exercise is that you're thinking about the baseline of what an art sprint entails. So on the left, it's going to be the activities that you could do in an art sprint, some things that you think would be interesting, or the things that you used in the past that you could explore in an art sprint to kind of come to some sort of conclusion or outcome, whether it's short term within a day or longer term in terms of what it would influence. Now, these can be design sprint activities as well as other things that you used in the past. There really is no boundary with this, but this is from your own perspective. After we do this exercise, we're going to move to the right and basically go into what a schedule for a typical art sprint would be. And what this is meant to do is to kind of look at a baseline. So if you were to think about an art sprint as just a foundational process that you could use to explore some of the things that you have already indicated up here in terms of what you would use it for and why would someone use it, this is going to be kind of a collective kind of group activity around what kinds of things should be in this space. Now, if we start to run out of room, I can always move these particular things in part three down. But again, approach it from a default, like what is foundational to something of what an art sprint needs. Then later on, you'll be able to kind of personalize it in a way that you feel should be approached based on your experience and your own perspective. So let's start with on the left of part two and get into some activities you think should be in an art sprint. Put as many as you like in there. There's a little bit more cards than last time. And again, no right or wrong answers. Just go ahead and put in and spill out your brain into the space on what you think would be some ideal activities to do in a typical art sprint. And just for the sake of having a time box, I'll give it 5 minutes. Don't think we'll get there, but let's just see where we go. Wow, that was quick. There's only a few that, no, everything's filled in. Never mind. I don't even have time to kind of improvise on what I'm doing over here, and you guys are already way ahead of me. Okay, so this is a sampling of different things that everyone is considered in terms of activities. So we have a lot of ideas on where we can go with this. What we're going to do is use this as kind of a palette, and look over here on the right side and look at this in terms of to schedule for a typical art sprint. Now, what you can do is you can basically copy and paste certain cards you see here. So you can select one, and you can do a Command D on your keyboard if you're on a Mac, or a Control D if you're on a PC, and that should create a card that you can easily bring over into this space. The one thing I've added here on the left, if you see, is something that says time or order of execution. You want to kind of think of the y-axis here as a way of saying, okay, we're talking about a pre-sprint activities. Generally speaking, if we were to look at these things being the things you would do first, and something lower on here would be things that you would do after the fact, that's kind of where you want to take things. So I'll go ahead and duplicate one to kind of show what I'm saying. So this would be like the first activity, and then this would be after the first activity, the second activity, and so on. And again, these things are going to move around, shuffle around based on our perspective. There's no right or wrong answers. Just go ahead and start filling in from the top and fill in towards the bottom, and take from on the left what you think should be on the right. If we need more room, we can always extend out the canvas this way so that there's more area to work with. Also, you can extend the days so that they're a little bit larger. You're pretty much you're free to kind of improvise on this as you like. Since this is an art sprint, we might as well have an artistic process that goes along with it. We'll stop the timer up here if I can get to it, and we're going to go ahead and set up a new one for the purposes of what we're doing here. Let's say I want to give this one let's give it 7 minutes and see where it goes from there. So again, think of like a baseline art sprint process, what you would fundamentally need to have an art sprint work and come to some sort of purpose, like, or some sort of conclusion. And again, everyone's going to come at this a little differently. So it'll be interesting to see where things kind of fall off versus what things stick. And again, no right or wrong answers. During this time as well, you don't have to be mute. You can actually ask open-ended questions. If I sense that there's a little bit of like a fun, if we start going down a rabbit hole in terms of debate on something, then I'll kind of interject with a few questions just to make sure I clarify understanding.
This is kind of an affinity mapping, or?
In a way. So what you're doing is you're constructing a schedule of events. So if someone is asking you to do an art sprint, based on all the perspective you gained from people that have submitted their digital cards up above, and what you've kind of put on the left in terms of the activities you do in an art sprint, how would you construct them here on the right-hand side? Now, this is not necessarily going to be your personal view. This is kind of what the collective is thinking in terms of what goes on which day. And if there are things on there on the left that aren't represented in your mind on the right, then you can create new cards. So if there's something here that isn't listed, but you think, okay, post sprint, I definitely want to do a showcase with a live audience in terms of what was done. That's one possibility for the post sprint. And then, as you can see, people are kind of constructing things here. So again, no right or wrong answers. We're just trying to think of a baseline kind of schedule of events, so to speak. And something that's on the left that you put here won't exactly fit on the right. They may seem like they're more for a specific type of art sprint, and they can stay in the left. They can stay over here on the left, but on the right, you're constructing something that you feel would be baseline. Bring this up a little bit. And for reference, what we'll do is at the end of this time session, we'll do a little bit of refinement, take out duplicates, maybe rearrange things, and we'll do a quick voting session just to vote on the most important activities we see here. I find it interesting that of all the days, Tuesday, the one that's usually devoted to design, is the one that's the most populated with activities, which makes sense. I just find it interesting. Got less than a minute left. Okay. So I'm just doing something fun down here. You can ignore me for the time being. Okay. So we have an assembly of different cards here, and some of them have kind of a structure where if they're closer to the top, there's something that get done earlier in the day than later in the day. Down here, I put a little bar in that says lunch, and that's basically mean like there's a logical break that usually happens in any particular day. I like to basically break this up so that between the middle of them, there's a little bit of a break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and bring it down just one step because we're about to go into a refinement stage. I'll bring lunch up here, hypothetically, not saying that that's arbitrary. But what I want to do is look over all the cards that people have put here and first look for duplicates. So we have a couple of things where we do storyboarding 3 times here in this one particular column. Probably you can eliminate the first 2 since the number 1 is closer high up, and we'll take out these 2 here. So then use of visual aids goes here. Now, from your perspective, you think that this is something that would happen after lunch, like if you want to take a break after certain activities, then this would go down here. That's totally up to you. But as a group, go ahead and take a look at things where there are duplicates. Take out ones where if you see the same thing higher up and that's closer to the top of the art sprint, and kind of take out ones that are duplicates. Those are the ones I saw right away, at least on Wednesday. Also, if you see a couple of things that are very close, meaning that they're almost similar in terms of activities, but they're just worded differently. What you probably want to do is, let's say expert interview seems to be out both on Tuesday and Monday. So you want to take both cards, like shift click both of them and give them a different color. It could be any color you want, but this is to kind of call out that we're doing expert interviews on 2 different days here. And we may want to consider which one seems to make more sense if it's on a Monday or on a Tuesday. So I'll give about a minute for this. It's just kind of a quick overview of what we've done. And I'll wait till the arrows on the screen start to slow down, and then we can take a look. Then we'll have enough time to kind of personalize things. Yeah, pre-research and LDJ are very close. Let's say kind of research and competitive analysis are fairly close, but they could be 2 or 3 different things. One's more overreaching. Let's see here. I see manual collage of pictures, magazines, textures, and materials is duplicated. I'm going to take that one out and bring this one up. The tricky thing is to look at one day for this versus the other. Creating mood boards is also on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm probably going to take out the one on Thursday since the Wednesday seems to be the one that's closer to it. And we're going to bring these up a bit. Bring this up as well. I'll take expert interviews out of Tuesday and bring that up 1. Yeah, creating mood boards. So manual collage of pictures, magazines, textbooks, textures, materials, mood boards, they're very similar. It's nomenclature at that point. So I agree with that connection, but I wouldn't necessarily take out one or the other. I see use of visual tools for input and output is duplicated on Monday and Thursday. So I'm going to get rid of the Thursday one. Bring site-specific gathering up here and public performance up a bit. So it's before lunch. Again, I'm just filling in the spaces. I'm not necessarily saying that those would happen before lunch would occur. Let's see. There's a duplicate also as well. Ideation through immersion and experience, creating something is both on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll take out the Wednesday version and just bring up those 3. Again, with this, there is no right or wrong answers. All I'm really doing is just looking for things that seem to be duplicated between one day versus the other.
Maybe we could stretch the Tuesday activities as well a little bit to Wednesday. So bring storyboarding, creating, and use a visual up after lunch, and bring over some of the afternoon activities on Tuesday.
Could, but again, it's totally up to you. It's if you think there's some things that could live on Wednesday, it's a simple matter of taking any of these cards and bringing it over to Wednesday if you'd like. I think we've got everything here. Benchmarking surveys, LDJ is choosing art. These, I'm also going to color this one green because it seems like this one's close. It mentions LDJ here. Clarifying purpose and or outcomes is duplicated here. So I'm going to take out this one and bring this one up. How many questions to go up here? Anyone else see any other duplicates that I'm not? I think we've got them all.
Also, Robert, there's a piece that can't be captured in this. I mean, I think it's a great overall way to think about what we know as the design sprint and how we might shift it. But I think also as we work with a creative sprint, there might be themes that are coming up that have, with certain groups that have activities that would be attached to them. Like if it was, if we were working with the concept of creating a world in VR, right?
Mhm.
that we would be doing exercises, like there'd be a theme of exercises that might go through that are related to the theme of the design sprint. So it's not just, so it's connected to the theme and the goals and a medium that people are working in.
It's true. So yeah, I'm assuming that based on the context and the method as well as the purpose of this could blow out easily to like a more extended version of what this is, a lot more activities. So yeah, you're right. It entirely depends on context and situation.
But it's a great way to look at the overall process.
Yeah, at least for a baseline. Then you're going to have the chance after this is done to kind of create your own based on the impressions here. So let's go ahead and start a voting session. I'm going to give everyone, let's be generous and say 15 votes. With these votes, you can vote on a card more than once, although you don't want to vote on anything that says pre-sprint, the art sprint, post-sprint, or any of the Monday, Tuesday, and so on. You also definitely don't want to vote for lunch, as enticing as it may seem, since we're getting close to eating that way if you're anywhere in this time zone. But you can go ahead and you'll be able to vote on any of those cards once I start the voting session. And when I'll be taking note on where we are in terms of how far we are with the voting session. If anyone gets stuck, then just let me know. There's ways of kind of making the voting session work within Mural. And
Robert, I have a question for you before we begin. So things like expert interviews and how might we questions are the standard things that we'd have in an art sprint, and then there's other things that seem to be newer. Do you want us to consider more of what we might add as a yes and, or still keep in mind that I just assume we'd keep expert interviews and keep how might we questions in that format? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the lens for your voting should be, it's kind of a bridge to what you're going to be doing in part 3. So you're going to be looking at the entire collage of different possible activities that people have put here as a collective. And you're going to project what you would typically like to do if you were the person running the art sprint. So these votes are basically casting out of all the activities here, what would you take from the pile and kind of use for your own purposes. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So let's get started. And the way voting works is that you click on a card to add a vote. You hold down the shift key and click to remove a vote. And no one will be able to see your arrows, nor will they be able to see your votes. The only way we're going to be able to see this is through a display I'm showing in my shared screen on all the votes that are currently being allocated. Again, I will repeat that you can vote on a card more than once, or you can just basically select a card and vote on it once, and you're perfectly fine. But again, no right or wrong answer. This is your perspective on all the activities you would want to do in your art sprint. And we're going to see, if we look at it collectively, where certain activities seems to have more relevance as a group. And then we'll get into the individual ones. And just for time, we are at the top of the hour. We have 30 minutes left in our session, so we're doing really good. But again, if anybody has to scoot off to something that they need to tend to, just leave me a note in chat. You can drop off. You won't hurt my feelings. If that did hurt my feelings, then I need to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and feel better about myself. And for reference, I will not be voting. I will leave the decision making up to everyone in the session. So far, the shark is just having at it. Knows what they want. Same with the koala. The fish is not far behind. We're about halfway done. And the giraffe just did a flurry of different votes, and they're done. We have a goat and a bee and Nora Scully.
How many more do I have?
It looks like just one.
Just one. Okay. Done.
Okay. Just have a goat. That goat's voting pretty fast. And we're good. All right, let's end the voting session, see where the votes kind of were cascaded out. And we're going to look at things from the perspective of kind of a heat map. So there's a number of things that have 6 votes. So then it looks like no one really put a lot of votes on one particular car, which is good. I would say probably the threshold in terms of things that were vital to this could arguably anywhere from 4 to 3 votes. So when I get out the voting results, what you're going to see are certain things in the voting results that have 6s and 5s and 4s. For the purposes of kind of honing in on our kind of view, I'm just going to put things that kind of had that threshold and put borders on them, so you can kind of see where that delineation of a line is. And go here, put on that. What I'm curious to know is how many of these are typical to a design sprint versus what things seem to be out of the bounds of that particular process. So I think I covered everything, at least for the ones that are at the 4 threshold. Okay. So I'll just do a quick overview before we go into part 3. It looks like on the pre-sprint side of things, if we take 3s as being something that has some resonance with the group, clarifying purpose and outcomes, an LDJ to choose an art or a type, and then also some research involved. On the Monday, there's the how many we questions and value mapping to define clear what you want the audience to feel, which is pretty interesting. Viewer journey mapping is another one. I've never heard of that before, actually, but that sounds pretty interesting. Who actually did that? Who was the person that put viewer journey mapping in there? If you'd like to come on microphone and please.
That is so. I'm sorry. That was me. I thought that the term customer journey mapping is always clear, but I was now in various LDJs, and sometimes the customer is not the right wording. And so if you think you build a community, a member journey mapping might be more interesting. And I thought this from a perspective as someone that goes into a museum, and then I'm the viewer of a picture or of the art, and how is my journey to go to get to consume the art. That's the idea behind that.
Okay, fantastic. On Tuesday, it looks like there's a little bit of role play involved. There's some interest in doing that. And then some crazy eights, which we're familiar with on the design sprint side. There looks like there was stations with various media materials to explore. So if we're in a physical environment and working with physical materials or potentially digital, though digital would be interesting. It's like kind of, I'm assuming that this one tends to be on the physical side, but it could be both. Then ideation through immersion and experience of creating something. So this is something where it's not just kind of going through the motions like you typically do in a design sprint, that it's really get into the art and really immersing yourself in it. There's a bit of interest in sharing creations through storytelling and giving a journey into how the ideation happened and insights into the thinking. Wednesday seems to kind of correlate with storyboarding and creating mood boards. So kind of telling the story and putting it into a visual sense. On Thursday is prototyping the idea. And on Friday is a public performance showing. And that seemed to have a lot of resonance where you're actually showcasing to the world. And to be fair, I also put a post sprint in terms of showcasing with a live audience. So it looks like the end result of an art sprint is something where you are showcasing what you've done to a live audience or to the public. I, in the past, have done digitally. I can easily see it doing that in person. So that's a really interesting kind of approach, or I wouldn't say approach, but perspective on what everyone's thinking with this schedule. So now that we've done this,
you could still showcase digitally. You know, there's creative ways that might happen too.
Yep, absolutely. Far be it for me to tell somebody who is an artistic, no, there is no way to do that. But yeah, you're right. So now on part 3, here's your chance to basically create what you feel an art sprint should be. Now you have a few things to basically draw from. Let's say Melvin right here. He's got his own row in this section. This first part here with the little purple thing is basically a purpose. So Melvin would probably go up here in terms of part 1, and you could look at what would you use an art sprint for. Melvin can basically take one of these that he either wrote or that he saw from someone else and put it into that purple box. And you would basically copy and paste it, put it here, and then start building out the sprint that you would like to do. Now, luckily, since we've kind of done this collage over here, you'll want to copy and paste particular cards that you would like to have for your particular sprint. Now, the thing you do not want to do is take a card from here and physically move it over to that space that you're using, simply because that it will erase part of the votes that are here, and it won't be a good reference point for everything else. So if you do want to take something from here, it's a simple matter of Control C and Control V, or Command V and C and V, and then you can bring in something that's here and bring it down into your space. So for the next 20 minutes, you're going to go ahead and create your own version of an art sprint based on the work that we've done to date. You'll probably have to scroll a bit to see where your avatar is. So Chris is right below Melvin. Susanna is right below Chris. We have Alexa, who is right below Susanna. Then we have Alex after that. And then Pablo's there. And then, whoa, there's Nora, who copied the whole thing in her spot. So granted that she's done that.
Nora, you are my hero. I'm going to do the same.
Yes.
I've got to give you all more space, because I'm realizing that there is not going to be enough space.
It's okay, Robert. I'll move them around. I just didn't want to be, jumping up and jumping down. I thought if I just bring them down, and I have to leave at 9:25. So
okay. No, that's totally fine. But what I am going to do based on your action is I think I'm going to start giving people a lot more space than they need, since it looks like they're going to need a lot more than what's here. So give me 2 shakes of a lance tail and let me actually extend this canvas out a whole lot to give people a lot of room to work with. So give me just a moment. It should take me probably a minute or less. So I'm going to really extend the canvas out a bit. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and close this. 1 second. It's kind of work with Mural. It's chunking a bit because I'm extending the canvas beyond what it's comfortable with, but it'll get there. Does anybody have any questions while I'm going through this process?
Hey, Robert.
Yo.
No question, but I do think this is super valuable opportunity to get to design a workshop. I think it's a super useful skill, and really happy that I joined. I think it can be hard to design a workshop. So going through it with a group of people, and then getting a bunch of inspiration from others, and then using that inspiration to come up with like maybe your own process is super awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome. I genuinely enjoy doing this kind of stuff and seeing how other people view like a process. So quite happy with it.
Have you done similar thing with other sprints?
Nope, this is the first time I've tried it.
Workshop?
Actually, so what I'm trying to do at the moment, and some might have seen, I want to create a own sprint, a startup sprint, a sprint for startups. And I think this would be a super helpful exercise for me to actually do the next step with that.
So I'm going to follow Nora's footsteps, and I'm actually going to go in and copy the palette of different options that were just done here, and I'm going to put them in for each section. So if you kind of cascade down a bit, like say Pablo, if you're looking at your spot down below, I'm going to put over on the, let's say the right-hand side, your own copy of what was just done there. And then same with Alex. I'm gonna, instead of like going all the way up and all the way down, I'm gonna create a palette of of all the cards that were used to the right of everyone's workspace. So same with Alex. You can follow me and you can see what I'm doing here. I'll actually summon everyone so you can see what I'm doing. So all I'm doing is basically just copying and pasting the different cards that were done up above. And that'll give you quick and easy access to what you're going to be building out for your own purposes. And it'll make Mural choke a bit, but I think we'll be okay. If you start having performance issues, I will get on their case and say, look, you got to make
So
this
Robert,
easier.
one doubt. Do we need to use the highly voted items, or I can choose whatever I like?
Whatever you like. Far be it from me to tell someone like the world famous Melvin Thamby what he's going to be doing. So hang on, they got to reset mine. Okay. Hang on, Melvin, you're the last person I'm going to be bringing this over for. Okay. So have at it. Give me a bit more canvas so everything's white. And just drag and drop from the right to the left from the process we just got done with. You can go ahead and fill in your own. Right now it's about 11 minutes after the hour. I think what we'll do is we'll go into about, say like about right up until the end of our session. And I'll give us some options on where we can go from here. But for now, let's just kind of build this out, give you some space to kind of see where this goes, and you know, have some fun with it. Hey, Lisa, no worries. This entire thing is being broadcast up on YouTube. And if you registered for the event, if you're either a participant or a observer, there will be an on-demand link that will be sent to the email address that you had registered with. And that'll contain pretty much everything you're seeing here. Also, for the panelists, just to let you know, if you run out of time and you want to, in terms of this session, and you want to continue working, you're more than welcome to do so. What I'm planning on doing is, like yesterday's session, I'm going to put this into an article, or I will feature how everyone is kind of approached doing an art sprint so that I'll put them on display on LinkedIn and Instagram and so on to kind of showcase the thinking behind everyone's approach to this. So it isn't going to be lost and kind of archived in a mural somewhere. I'm planning on giving this life by kind of showcasing how people think and what we did. So don't feel like this is wasted space. There will be a kind of a follow-up to this in terms of how each of us approach doing an art sprint. And perhaps I would have people contact you in particular on your approach and what you do, if you want that to happen. So no rushing, should be okay. Yeah, Susanna, yeah, Mural may tend to do that, especially if you're, we had this thing happen with you in the GVDS, so yeah. Yep. If you need to come back at it later, that I could understand. Also, for anyone who wants to know where the YouTube link is, I'll go ahead and put that for both panelists and attendees. so that you can use that to view the results later on. And what I'll do, so that you're not looking at very tiny boxes and lettering, is I'm going to zoom in a little bit and start kind of going into how people are kind of putting their art sprints together. And Susanna, you're not alone. It's chunking for me too. So it's more on the processing side for Mural right now. So if you'd like, if you're someone that doesn't mind talking and working at the same time, like Chris had mentioned before, if you want to voice your comments or questions about this particular process that we've been doing, feel free to speak up at any time between now and the bottom of the hour. Otherwise, I will let you be. And Pablo,
some light music would be awesome.
I can do that. Pablo, are you having any issues with running with Mural? Do you know where you are?
Yeah, I am. I'm just struggling now with this box here.
Okay.
Which I'm trying to move.
Oh, on the right hand side.
This one, yeah.
And just so, and you're kind of working in your workspace down below, correct? Because down below, I'm just going to summon a Roy really fast.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'll ask to be followed. So if you see that inquiry to be followed, just choose that.
Yeah.
Your workspace is down here, over here.
Okay.
And all of your cards that you just did in the session over here on the right, you can pretty much take one of the cards here and just drag and drop it where you want to. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can self-assemble where you'd like to take things.
Okay, super. Thank you, Robert.
No problem. And I will be right back. So keep on working and feel free to chat if you want. I'm going to go downstairs and grab something real fast. Thank you very much for coming, Elkin. Really much appreciate it. Elkin was one of the people that was viewing us while working on this. So hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, so is there anybody that's finished their particular art sprint? It feels like they've come at a stopping point. That's good. Keep going then.
Hi, Robert. Yes. As facilitator, how do you feel if someone added, since it's kind of a personal exercise right now, how would you feel if I added an activity?
Go for it. You don't have to necessarily just be restricted to what's on the right-hand side. You can create your own activities in a way that you feel would kind of hit at the purpose that's in that purple box there.
Okay, so in your mind, it wouldn't be breaking any design sprint.
Nope.
I don't.
Not at all. You could basically.
I don't know what you would even call it. Okay.
Well, what you could do is you could extend it out 2 weeks. So the art sprint can basically be like the first week that you see there. Then you copy and paste Monday through Friday, bring it down one level, and say like, okay, this is my particular art sprint's actually going to be less than not just a week, but a second week where we're going to be iterating on what we did the first week after a weekend of reflection. Again, this is wide open, so you don't necessarily have to be restricted to what you're seeing. You could potentially peel off the box and try something a little bit different.
Okay. Yeah, because once I dug in, I was like, it just sparked a lot of, I guess, neurons, saw the inspiration. I was like, oh, actually, I could go this way.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly the point.
All right.
You get a collective idea of what the group thinks, and then you venture off into something that you would love to do if you did it on your own, based on one of the purposes that was indicated in part one.
But yeah, I mean, this initial foundation, like kind of a starting spot, is hugely helpful.
Yeah. So I thought that if we start off with a baseline and then we can trail off depending on what we want to do and what we have an affinity for, it would make more sense. And Susanna, one possibility also is that if you're working off of your own workspace, you could potentially highlight everything you see there and copy and paste it into a new mural. So that doesn't have this processor heavy background with all the other elements in there. And then once you're done in your own workspace, you can copy and paste it back into here. And that would be something where you wouldn't feel like you were going click, 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 and everything lagging.
I'll give that a try. I can't even drag the things across the mural board right now. I mean, I refreshed it. Now I'm an elephant instead of a koala, but.
Well, how about this? I'll go ahead and do this for you since I have a bit of more processing power on my end. Let me go ahead and start up a new mural, and I'll invite you in, and then you can have that one to work against. You can close the other tab. So give me 1 second, and I will create a new one. Keep it blank, and see if it brought in everything. Or
I got it working when we were doing GVDS. I was using Zoom and the mural board separately, but we also started using some streamlined mural boards, and I think this is pushing my capacity.
its limit. Okay. See if this works. Hey.
Board.
All right, so let's talk. And go ahead and share this out. Hey, Susanna. Hi. Send an invite to you.
Okay.
That would be me.
Got it.
And let's see if you can log into there. I'll wait for you to come in. You might want to close that other tab that you had open that's in the main area. Then you can just use this. I'm showing on the Zoom. See how everyone else is doing.
I had to request reactivation.
Oh, well, that's no good.
Because I was in it before when we were doing the.
Yeah, you're all gray. That's not good. Reactivate.
I gotta go, Robert. Thanks
Okay,
so
Nora.
much. I'll
Thank you
talk
very
to you
much for
later.
coming. Hey, thank you very much for participating, Nora.
Yes, my pleasure.
Bye, Nora.
Bye,
And,
Susanna. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Nora. Bye bye.
And Nora, really fast, are you still there or did you go?
Yeah, I'm here.
So one of the things I was going to ask everyone to do, and maybe I'll do it now since we're 5 minutes in, is that for this particular last thing, after you get done kind of constructing your own art sprint the way that you have it, what I'd like to encourage you to do is to take a snapshot of what you've created here in terms of in Mural and share that out with either on LinkedIn or some other social media that you have, and just basically say, this is my version of an art sprint. I'm going to be doing that anyway later on, either this afternoon or tomorrow. But if you want to get a head start on it and you really like what you've done, only if you like what you've done, then consider putting that out there in the world for people to see and see what kind of reaction you get.
Yeah, I like some of those boxes we did in the up top. You know, those like, who's going to join? What are we going to do? I really like those pieces. This piece at the end feels like I need to chew on it a little more because it's, you know, anyway, but thank you. And yes, and.
Okay, got it. Yeah, whenever you're ready then.
Okay, but I will.
Okay, bye, Nora. Okay, like I mentioned, one of the things I was going to ask everyone to do is, depending on how interested you are with your own art sprint, I would encourage you to share it with people that you know, in the sense that you would go, okay, well, this is a session we had. Here's some ideas I had about actually using the design sprint process for and projecting into the art. Melvin has ones where he's actually color coordinated the sections by the color, which is interesting, and he's still working on it, looks like. I think Chris has his down here. I think Susanna, are you over in the personal room? Are you good to go over there? Yes. Okay. You have to tell me if you're still chunking or not.
Yeah, I've just gotten back in now. I'll give it a try.
Okay, cool. But how does everyone feel about that? Since I want to be respectful of time, how do you feel about basically working on this for the next, like, maybe 20, 30 minutes or sometime during the day, and finishing up your thoughts around what the art sprint is? And if you really like it, you can share it. Otherwise, when I create an article on this, I can go into ones that look finished or semi-finished and kind of showcase each of these particular ways of kind of going about it. How does everyone feel about that? Or does anyone have any strong feelings either way?
I'm fine for both. I'm fine for the article and to be mentioned, and I'm fine to make my own posts for what I have come up in this session. Might not do it today, but the post, but tomorrow, and I'm going to finish it right now.
Okay. Pablo, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it feels great. I also feel that probably a bit more time to get something where I feel more comfortable with, but I'm totally okay to go and spread the word, and happy that you do that as well. So fantastic.
Let's say that I won't touch this until like Friday evening. So there'll be like a good 48 hours where people can kind of come back to it if they feel inspired to, and finish it out. If it looks like there's still things where it's still being worked on, I won't bring it out into the world, and I'll concentrate on our collective activities and go from there.
Super.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment before we wrap things up? Anything about the session? Anything about the process that you liked? Any suggestions you would have for me if I did this again in a different way before the Global Virtual Design Sprint happens in May? Anything you'd like to kind of talk about, or at least make a comment on?
So Robert, I can revisit again and make changes here. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So I will do this. I will post this today night, defining my process on each day.
Okay. And then, like I said, I won't revisit this back until Friday, so that if people want to have time to kind of refine their thoughts and kind of put some, like, you know, polish this up a bit before they feel like it's a decent shot at what they feel an art sprint is, then I'll give that window, and then I won't re-engage until that Friday evening when I do some article writing.
Sure. So I can share this in LinkedIn, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, the snapshots and everything. Everyone is okay with it, right?
Yep. Oh, one thing I will mention too is that up above at the very top, for those that don't know, for everyone's kind of profile picture up here, you can double click on any of their pictures here and it will open up their LinkedIn profile. So you can take a look at their who they are, their experience, their background, and so on. So beyond the introductions that were given, you can check out Pablo, you can find out what Nora's all about just by double clicking on them. And I can even show in Zoom, when I double click on this, it opens a new tab and Nora's right there. So it'll give you an idea of everyone that was in the session today.
Sure.
Maybe 2 points from my part, Rob. One thing, I came up with that as well yesterday, but when we have all created our different art sprints, it might be interesting to show that to, I don't know, artists or I don't know, people in the health industry, someone who, or investors, someone that could use it and they vote on it somehow, which sprint they like, which not, to get an idea, yeah, what the audience wants. So that could be one thing. And the other thing is that if there would be like an advisor or a decider on like creating a sprint, not an art sprint, but whatever sprint you create, that the person in charge is then doing like a condensed version, that would be like interesting. I would find that interesting.
You know, it opens the door for productizing it as well. So if you wanted to experiment to see if people would put skin in the game and say, like, we're going to do an art sprint based on your personal approach to it, like what you constructed in terms of the activities, figure out what it would make sense for you in terms of like finances from being able to put it on and what would be cost versus revenue, and just put it out there and see what people do. It doesn't have to be, you could prototype it and just take a couple hours to write out a Eventbrite to say, like, okay, I would hold it in my studio and I would do this, and just put it out there and put a rate that you think would work and see if anybody signs up. And then you may have a successful disaster in that it forces you to go, oh crap, I've got to get it together. But you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt if there's a market or an interest in doing it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because that's what I'm planning on doing for a few things coming up outside of the art sprint.
And the last thing, if you would allow me to steal that template for a session that I might plan to do.
Go ahead. I mean, you can take anything. You can take anything you want out of this if you want to. I just curate these and do them differently every time. So depending on the outcome I'm trying to shoot for, which is like a personalized art sprint from each individual, that was my aim with this. But feel free to take anything out of this that you like.
Well, I could imagine, like, for the startup sprint, really like getting super cool input with this format.
Yep, go for it. Any other comments, questions, or observations before we wrap things up?
Yeah, Robert. Hey, it's Chris again.
Hello.
I don't know. I wasn't in the last conference or global virtual design sprint. So I don't know really which way you're going for this next one. For me personally, I'd rather do something like this where it's, yeah, let's get together, and I guess it's more facilitator training, but it's, hey, let's get together and design workshops together. More so than going through, yeah, hey, let's tackle some business problem together. I don't know if that's you or not.
Well, so the GVDS 4 is going to be announced on Friday.
Okay.
And part of the choice the teams have is they can go through this exact same exercise to construct the activities they want to do for their week. So it isn't going to be your typical design sprint going through the process. It's literally taking the skills and experience of everybody that's in the group and saying, if this is our challenge, how would we want to explore the process of kind of figuring out what would be the ideal outcome? So it would go through this exact same process of kind of thinking of the time that they have versus what kind of activities they want to do. And people would self-elect those activities and say, you know, we could probably do this. This would be pretty interesting, get the right responses. That way you'll be able to blend a lot of different process and a lot of different approaches beyond just the default to produce the outcome that you're interested in doing. So, go for it.
So to clarify, you're going to let certain groups that want to come up with essentially design their own sprints or workshops and then run through the workshop and then the world.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I want.
Yep. So that'll be one of the 10 updates that we're doing for May. Every design sprint can be customized, or if people are brand new to the process, you can take the defaults and then improvise from there in session. It'll be pretty much open, but I'm introducing a modular build to this event that will, I think, better accommodate the people that are a part of the team and not have to fit them into a box. Anything else?
Yeah,
If not,
take a screenshot.
okay, yes, we definitely have to do that. So I'm going to end the share at this point, and I'm going to go into a gallery view of everybody and maximize my screen. So yesterday we did what was ever next to you in terms of something that's at your desk that you can put in front of your screen and use that as kind of an anchor for the group picture that we're going to be doing. So Alex, you stay sick. You're perfectly fine with the picture that you have there. You don't have to come off camera. But for everybody else, find something that you want to put in front of the camera. And with this, I'll do a microphone. Go like this, like I'm a DJ. Do it that way. But find something there. Alex has got a pen. Pablo, do you have anything at your desk? Anything you want to grab? There you go. Actually, that microphone's a little lame. Let's do something else. Oh yeah, I can do this. I woke up my dog from her nap.
I guess glasses wouldn't be too cool.
Haven't seen this in a while, have you? Okay, old tech. Are you ready? We're doing a screenshot. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Thank you very much for today's session, everybody. It was really cool. Again, share what you'd like from the session. Article will go up over the weekend. And if you have any follow-up from me, you can find me on LinkedIn or you can email me. For those of you who are listening in on YouTube or watching, thank you very much for that. If you're watching this recording afterwards in Zoom, then please feel free to write and let us know what you thought of the process. But I will break now so that you guys can go and get lunch or do whatever you need to do. And thanks again for coming to the session. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks all.
Bye,
Nice to meet
everybody.
you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.